Warning, the Renegade Recruiter is not for the soft, timid, or faint-hearted. If you need permission or seek approval from your mother, spouse, mates in the pub, or anyone else for that matter, this really isn't for you. If any of what you've heard puts you off in the slightest, I advise you not to listen any further. You've been warned. Prepare yourself for the no bullshit, zero fluff. Quick, dirty, and uncensored secrets for any serious recruitment, staffing, and search business owner who wants to earn more money with less work and fewer headaches, without having to kiss ass or bend over backwards to please anyone. He's a relentless and fearless renegade who will stop at nothing to reveal the harsh, unforgiving, and brutal truth about what it really takes to succeed in this business. He's a guy people love to hate and hate to love. It's your host, Terry Edwards. The Renegade Recruiter is unleashed.
Hello. This is Terry Edwards, Renegade Recruiter, and welcome to another episode of Renegade Recruiter Unleashed. And my guest today is Paul Thompson, who is from Voyager. Paul, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Terry. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really well. And
Good.
It's just the two of us today. Often Drew joins us on the call, but Drew's not with us today, so it's just the two of us. But I'm really looking forward to this. It's slightly different in terms of the podcast that we do. But before we kind of get into the podcast itself, just give us an overview of Voyager, what they do, and I know a lot of our clients will know of them, but just give us an overview of Voyager, what they do, and the different businesses that they operate in.
Cool. Okay. Well, yeah. Thanks for that. So, I mean, Voyager is essentially a software company, of course, set up well before the end of the 90s, but best part of 20 years in the business now. We effectively provide software for the recruitment industry. We started out many years ago being just a perm recruitment software application, but since then have bought a couple of other brands. So within the Voyager brand is a company called ISV, which does all our online and skills testing company, and there's some other companies as well that are similar to us. We basically provide software for the recruitment industry, and so whether you're a one-man band, a multinational doing temp, perm or headhunting, or a mixture of all of it, that's a little bit about us and what we do.
Great. You mentioned other companies there, Paul. Who are the other companies, for those that don't know?
Yeah, so there's three companies within the group. There's a sister company of ours called Firefinder. They're primarily a long-standing search and selection software application, more about project planning with recruitment tied in. ISV is for skills testing, from anything from typing and speed awareness courses that would integrate into our application. And the third business is a product and company called Evolve, which is a web-based CRM for startup businesses, but also some of our larger clients with diverse office locations. So all recruitment software, that's all we do, but just different brands.
Okay, excellent. And tell us a bit about you, Paul. I mean, I know of you, but for those that don't know anything about it, tell us about you and how you got to where you are now, what your official job title is now, please.
Yeah, okay. Well, job titles aren't sort of things that we go for too big here at Voyager. I think everyone wears at least 3 different job titles, but I kind of fell into recruitment at a very young age, like a lot of people, I guess. Moved out, needed to earn some money pretty quick, and a couple of my mates were running an agency and doing quite well. So I think after 3 or 4 months, I found myself in a management position with a couple of those guys sort of moving on and quite quickly build myself up the ranks. I worked at a recruitment agency called Laser many years ago and thought, you know what, it's easy to look good when you do it manually. So I wonder if some technology would make life a little bit easier. So I in its very much its infancy, I joined Voyager as one of the first few members of staff. That was best part of 17 and a half years ago now. Sounds like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and in my time here at Voyager, we launched the first perm Windows-based application. That's how long ago it was. We set up an Australian office. We then added on temp and industrial recruitment applications. And we now obviously own a group of companies owned by the DSG group, and we have a range of recruitment applications. So our aim was always really to have something to offer anybody in recruitment. So yeah, whether you're literally a one-man band recruiter or a larger company, we've got something to sell. But in terms of my background, I just saw recruitment as being something that was easy to earn good money at, and you didn't have to do a particularly good job to be successful. And I always kind of thought that was going to be a short-term attitude, and I did kind of sense that the industry would become a bit more professional. And I remember thinking at the time that it was odd you couldn't get qualifications in recruitment, and of course that's very different now. So yeah, I guess I've seen recruitment in the best and worst of eyes, I suppose.
Yeah. And what's your role and responsibility within the business, Paul?
So my role here as sales and marketing director of Voyager is really to do everything that's sort of customer facing and prospect facing. So sales for us includes looking after customers, making sure they keep happy and feel loved. So I am very much involved in the account management side of things here at Voyager. And yeah, as the job title suggests, I have a sales target, so that can quite often involve doing podcasts, running events, networking with our customers, but really kind of stay in front of the recruitment industry. I mean, I kind of pride myself on having plenty to talk about, and if you're in recruitment and you've got something that's going to impact the industry, then I'm keen to connect and make contact with those sort of people.
Excellent. Well, so are there any funny or amusing stories or things that people don't know about you, Paul, that you're prepared to share with us today?
I guess everyone's got a bit of an alter ego. I mean, as a businessman, my life is spent talking to recruitment consultants and making their lives easier, and introducing technology is obviously a big part of that. So I see myself as a bit of a techie at heart, but actually, outside of work, it couldn't be further from the truth. So yeah, camping is kind of my thing. Quite often go on what we call walkabouts with me and a bunch of chums. It's literally backpack, one man tent, pocket full of peanuts and Mars bars, and we try and stay out for as long as we can. So yeah, I probably get sort of 20-30 days camping in a year. And
do you really? Crazy, yeah.
And that's kind of like the sort of more rugged edge of camping, I suppose. So yeah, we don't book sites, we don't book campsites. I do have a little caravan that I take occasionally when the wife and kids can be talked into coming along, but more often than not it's getting a kayak, going down the Thames and finding a farmer's field to crash in for the night. So yeah, kind of the opposite of what I do every day, but yeah, it kind of gets you away from the technology.
Excellent. So in your opinion, campsites are for wimps then, are they, Paul?
Well, I think sort of glamping seems to be the thing that everybody likes to do these days, but yeah,
that's right.
I was at a campsite not that long ago, and one guy in his tent had a fridge and a microwave, and I kind of thought it's probably about as far away from camping as you can get, but there you
go. Excellent. And in terms of you say your role is sales and marketing, what are your sort of main routes to market? How do you typically go about getting business?
Yeah, we're doing a whole pile of things. Obviously, we've got a good-looking website that brings in a fair bit of interest and attraction. We're obviously keen to show our software to people, but that requirement often comes from hearing people's problems. So for us, it's really a case of getting in front of recruiters that are keen to do more faster with less cost. And so we do online training clinics for recruiters. We offer webinars on how to source online, which kind of positions us as people who know what we're talking about. And off the back of that, we get some amazing questions, and a lot of our good ideas come from just those sort of conversations. So in terms of the channels to market, we have 2 people in a team of 90 who do sales here. So it's a very, very small team. Most of our business comes from ideas and recommendations and referrals that our customers have given us. And what with recruitment being like it is, quite often people will buy Voyager because they've heard of it before, or they've heard good things about it. So that is often the starting point. I would say that probably 30-40% of the business we get is come off the back of somebody phoning us up and asking us about the industry. So in the olden days, people would go into IT recruitment knowing it's a good sector to be in. It's more common these days for a recruiter to ask us, what would be a good sector? Where do you see the market going? So we're much more involved at that level as we are just simply showing people software. But of course, that's a big part of what we do as well.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said there, Paul. I mean, you just shared with us you're using the website, you're getting referrals, online training, webinars, position yourself as the expert. They're your sort of what we call main routes to market. And all those routes you've just shared there, any recruiter or search firm can use exactly those same routes for generating leads for their business. But sadly, most of them don't know anything about it. But for most recruiters and search firms, there's about 150 different ways they can get a client to come to them. And there are just a few examples there that, as you're listening to this, you can use those exact same routes yourself. I think the key one there for you guys is, position yourself as an expert. And you talked there about sourcing. Look, here's what I know for a lot of recruiters, because I talk to a lot of recruiters as well. One of their biggest challenges is actually finding good quality candidates for the job roles that they're working on. If I was in that situation, what advice would you give to somebody like me? You said, Paul, I just can't find candidates. What would your typical response be to the recruiters looking for candidates?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really common problem at the moment, and obviously the software that we support and deliver is a massive part of that. I mean, just as our own strategy as a company that physically sells software, our marketing strategy, which I'm constantly sort of chewed up over, is really to try and do a little bit of everything, and that is very much the attitude that we try and pass on to our recruiters. So I think sourcing is all about getting in front of the right people. It's about swimming in the pools where you might find the talent. So for us, we do a little bit of LinkedIn, we do a little bit of Twitter, we do a little bit of blogs, we do we literally try and do a little bit of everything. We aren't really doing anything that costs a lot of money, but we are doing lots of different things in lots of different markets and lots of different sectors. And it just kind of means that if you are looking for something or someone, then you've got more chance of being seen. So I think one of the webinars that we do, which we'll put on this podcast link, is about sourcing online. And I think the reality is that in today's market, the best people have already got a job. They're not looking for a job on a job board. If they have been fired or made redundant, they're probably looking at job boards and lists of jobs. They probably don't care or maybe even consider that the job is even real. They just want to get their CV out there to agencies who might have an interest in that type of person. So for us, I think it's the realization that in today's market, the best people have probably got a job. Today's candidate is probably tomorrow's client, but why not look at a candidate from 2 years ago to see what they're doing now? So we're doing some pretty clever stuff now with artificial intelligence that maps people's career projections. So, if you're looking for a payroll manager, why not look at a payroll clerk from 3 years ago in your system? Why not pull all of those resources into one place? But also when you are sourcing online, the data's in multiple places. So I mean, again, and I use myself as an example, I actually have two phones. I have a work phone and a personal one. I've got a laptop in the office, which I use when I'm physically in the office. I've got a Windows Surface device, which in my opinion is much better and cheaper than a Mac. And I've got contacts in Outlook. I've got contacts on Skype. I've got contacts on LinkedIn. And for me, I want to bring all those people into one place. So I think when sourcing is the challenge, it's a case of setting up the talent pools first, understanding that actually a comment on a LinkedIn page or a comment that somebody makes on a Facebook post could actually be your next in to that person and getting to know them. So building rapport is obviously a lot easier when you know a little bit about them. So one of the things we're particularly proud of at Voyager is that when you look up a contact in Outlook or the Voyager database, you can see all those things in one go. So it's easier to say, I'm sorry, I'm running late for the call. I was up late watching the golf last night. It's really good to be able to say that if you can see that the last thing they tweeted was about golf. It just engages people in the call a lot easier.
Yeah. So you're saying your software. Let's say I was on someone's database, and let's say I posted something last night about watching the golf. Your software would display my Facebook activity as an example.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've realised is that recruiters recognise now that they don't have all of the good CVs. The best candidate, like I say, has got a job. He might have a good LinkedIn profile, but the chances are he hasn't had to type up a CV for a few years. So what we find beneficial is that when you're going through your list of database records or your contacts or the people on your ATS, if you click on Drew because he's the man for the job and he just so happens to be a mentor and that's what you're looking for, then it's good to know what else is he saying online, what blogs has he wrote, what tweets has he passed out, what news has he commented on. So when you do make that first introduction, you've got a bit more meat to go on. And I think having a system that brings fresh content together, certainly as a new business developer, it sounds a little bit sneaky, but when I'm making cold calls to people, which is still part of my job, and I phone somebody up and I quickly engage with them about, horse riding or camping or whatever it might well be, it's a little bit awkward when you then show them the software that you've been using that facilitated that conversation. The penny drops often a little bit after the first cold call has gone in. That is kind of what we do. So, it works.
Fantastic. Yeah, and you're going to tell us a bit. You said that you got something for listeners that you're going to give at the end, or all about sourcing. Is that correct, Paul?
Absolutely, yeah. We've got a free webinar that we'd love to invite your listeners to. Yeah, literally, it's free. It will cost you nothing. We give away loads of hints and tips. You don't have to be a Voyager customer to benefit from it. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody who wants to join is more than welcome.
Fantastic. Well, we'll come back to that. That free gift. I really appreciate that, by the way, Paul. So, typically, your target market? Do you target literally any recruiter?
Well, yeah, it sounds a little bit of a broad net, really, but our audience is anybody that's running a recruitment team or is in a recruitment role themselves. So we don't really go out and target businesses as such, because we're more interested in the go-getter recruiter type who's probably going to have teams of people working for him. I think if we spent a long time trying to court some of the big recruitment agencies, it would take a very long time for those businesses to make decisions. And by the time we've convinced them that the Voyager solution is the way forward, they've probably moved on to their next job and we start again. So for us, we're literally we're just trying to engage with the recruiters that are shaking up the market. You know, recruiters recognise nowadays that I think it's a proper job. It should be done properly. There's a way to identify what a successful recruiter looks like. And so for us, yes, we do sell to the businesses. It's ultimately a business that will write the check. But people get interested in Voyager when they've seen it, and it's typically the recruiter that drives that interest. Right.
And do you also provide to in-house recruiters as well?
Absolutely, yeah, of course, yeah. So a big part of what we do now is selling our solutions and services to in-house teams. It goes without saying that the good recruiter that's been doing the job on a commercial basis for many years, you know, sometimes they might maybe want to move away from that go-getter sales environment, and there's lots of very large businesses now that are putting very, very enticing roles together that will maybe move people away from that sales environment, but also reward what they would save a business. So a very good friend of mine works for one of the largest IT companies there are, and they still track what they save by making placements in-house. They literally have a fee to go against it. So yeah, in-house recruiters, it's more and more commonplace that we're dealing with those guys as well now.
You're listening to the Renegade Recruiter Unleashed podcast. For show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to www.therenegaderecruiter.com.
Yeah, so you can cover everything. And you mentioned, some of the ways that you grow your business, and you talked about, some of the things that your software can do. If I was a recruitment business owner, and I asked you this question, what are the key benefits that your software can provide for me? What would you say typically your key benefits that your software can provide for a recruiter?
Yeah, it's an interesting one actually, because people quite often look at cost as being the reason not to go ahead with a new solution. But of course,
that's not a benefit, is it?
Yeah, we only exist as a business because we will save them more than they spend. So the benefits of Voyager are simply that you wouldn't normally need to employ an administrator in a recruitment agency that's running Voyager. The social media person that's pulling together all your different feeds into one place so you can run reports on it. Why not get the recruiter writing the post and the blog? Are they not best positioned to do that? And also things like KPIs, what's the point in buying a system? Well, if you're spending as a manager time running reports and KPIs, why not have a system that provides that KPI, delivers it to your mailbox, and it maybe even presents it on a wall-mounted TV so the rest of the team can see how we're doing minute by minute, not just weekly in arrears at the end of the week when you've not hit your target. So in terms of the features, people come to us for a couple of different reasons. They're either trying to do more with less cost, do more with less staff, or they're not worried about cost or activity. They're just trying to grow a business and do it properly. So yeah, again, bit of a mixture, but certainly we don't get administrators phoning us up and buying Voyager anymore. We kind of question as to what that role would be these days. Maybe resources. We get a lot of inquiries from resources that are trying to work out how do they get all their CVs into a database and justify their existence. So that's a big part of it too.
Yeah. So to summarise those benefits, then it helps an owner or director of a recruitment or search business with their KPIs, key performance indicators. It would help with the social media marketing, and it would also reduce the costs of their current. It would reduce their current admin costs using one of your systems.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does far too many things to go into over a podcast, but it's essentially your one-size solution. So it holds your candidates, your clients, your prospects, your roles, your appointments, and allows you to track the process of that recruitment process. So where did the good candidates come from? How many phone calls do you have to make to have an interview that will result in an interview and a placement and a start date? So yeah, it's the entire recruitment life cycle that our software manages.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Paul. And in terms of the industry and what's going on in your business, what's been the biggest breakthrough in your business over, say, the last 12, 24 months or so, Paul?
Yeah, interesting question and really good timescale you put on that question, because I think for the best part of 18, 20 years we've been selling software, which is often by most people just seen as a database. And of course, that's what we do. It is a database that we're providing. But I think the one thing that really has changed things for our customers is the way in which the database works. So, for example, most agencies will have a database, whether that's Excel or Outlook or just a homegrown system. But what our system can do is track how you engage with those people. So, for example, if I give you a very quick one, if I was to search for a project manager in a traditional database, it would bring up a massive list of people that have been on the database for a very long time, and then you start looking at the CV to see how old it was and read the notes to see if there's been any communication with them recently. What our software does is bring that all into one place. So if I'm looking for a project manager with Voyager, I may well still have 1,000 people on that list that I do, but it's looking at the freshest list, the person I've met, the guy that phoned me back, the person with the newest CV, and it's also pointing me to the best contact on LinkedIn or the job board, or maybe just that CV that's sat in your colleague's inbox that's currently being ignored. That's something that would be included in that search. So it's a bit like doing a Google search for people. You trust Google to give you the best results and the best match. And that's kind of the way that we see things working. So searches are much more intelligent than they used to be. They don't create a very, very long list that you spend all day going through. It's the opposite of that. If you do a search and you've got thousands of people on it, you should be able to be pointed by a system to the best match. So I think the intelligence that we're building into Voyager is really what it's all about. And also recruitment agencies are typically ultimately they're forwarding a formatted CV or a original CV to a hiring manager, and so the basics of recruitment hasn't changed for many, many years or ever, you could argue. But what we're finding now is that because the best candidate has probably got a job, it's a case of pulling the best of their LinkedIn profile, a section of their old CV, the note that you had from a conversation 6 months ago, the salary details which might be in a database, and presenting that to look like a CV. We did some work with the REC and team not that long ago, and it was actually their comments that said, you know what, a CV is for an agency, but it's a profile that will get somebody a job at a client. And we couldn't agree more. We couldn't agree more with that now. When you're looking for good people, you don't search CV databases anymore. You search for intelligent systems that pull the best of information together into one place.
Excellent. So why a profile is better than a CV? Fantastic. Excellent. So would you say that's been one of the biggest changes over the last 18 months or so within the industry?
Yeah, I would say so, because I think if you're a candidate looking for a job, there are now websites that will spam your CV to any agency that wants it, and I think that's a sad time. You know, if you haven't got a job and you've typed up a CV and you don't have any good agencies to go to, or maybe you've done a search on LinkedIn for IT recruitment consultants in St Albans, because that's what you are, but if you're not finding anything that ticks your boxes, and you get an opportunity to upload a CV to 500 agencies at the click of a button, a lot of people are going to do that, which I think is only going to make recruiters' jobs even harder and harder. So I think it is a real game changer. But also the Data Protection Act is changing in the next 18 months, and really people do need to pay attention to this. It is soon to be illegal to hold on to candidates' details. You're going to have to get people to opt in to retain their data. So the shape of the database is going to be very, very different. But put it simply, imagine if you had to delete all the people that are on your system that you've not spoke to in 6 months. And it was a legal responsibility to do it. And I think if people do start looking at the market ahead and how the market is going to change in the next couple of years, they really do need technology that's going to keep them in business. You know, it sounds a bit dramatic, but you know, if you had to delete all of the CVs that are on your network right now, unless you could prove that they knew you'd got their details, then I think most recruitment agencies would be left with maybe 3 or 5% of the candidates they've got today.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And the new Data Protection Act, when does that come into force, Paul?
Well, as always with these things, it's a matter of time. I mean, there's going to be some things that will hit hard in probably March and May of next year. So, less than probably 6 months away. As always, there's going to be some unfortunate people who are going to be taken to court on case law will no doubt have an impact on that. So the actual law being brought into effect, it could be a couple of years. But, if you just take a look online, again, I'll put some links on the website that will kind of help people sort of just know what to search for. But yeah, the Data Protection Act is changing, and I think if you're not thinking about it now, you're probably a little bit too late.
Fascinating. Excellent. Thanks for that. And Paul, you've been in the industry, in the recruitment industry, what, 18, 19, 20 years now? You've been in it for a long time. No doubt you've met a lot of people in that time. Tell me, I'm curious, what's the best piece of advice you've been given from somebody within the industry, be it a manager, a mentor, or somebody that you've learned from in the time that you've been in the industry?
Yeah, great question. I mean, there's always one guy that springs to mind, a guy called Jeff. He was kind of the guy who gave me the opportunity all those years ago at Voyager. I ran a recruitment agency at the time, and we kind of competed with each other. So it was ironic that he ended up founding what is now Voyager. But when I first met him, I always remember that because he was kind of keen to understand what I thought the industry needed rather than what the competition was already doing. And when I ran my recruitment company, that was something I really tried to do. I tried to listen to what our clients wanted. Because quite often when as an agency, I'd go in and the focus would be on fees. And now that I sell software, the focus is on functionality. But actually, you can never catch up with functionality. It's changing so fast. It's really about where is the industry going. And if you are going to partner with somebody, you want to partner with a business that you feel is going in the right direction. And I think a lot of the time you need to kind of force that path and find the way forward. You can't just copy the competition and do it quicker and better. It's not going to be enough in technology now. So yeah, I mean, long time ago, but a guy called Jeff Warburton gave me the leg into Voyager, and I look back and remember him. I mean, he was certainly not a details man. He was very much a forward-thinking, creative guy. But some of the ideas that he came up with of what made Voyager the success it is today.
And what was the best bit of advice you got from him or from somebody else in the industry then, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, he said don't watch the competition, which I can't help but do a little bit. But yeah, I think listen to customers and don't watch the competition. I mean, that's got to be the idea. I think when I talk to my customers and ask what would they want the system to do, they don't tell me to copy other companies' functionality. They tell me that they want to plug in WhatsApp. They tell me that they want to integrate better. They want to know where candidates physically are by GPS on their phone. They're not searching for candidates who live in London on the database. So the sort of things that recruiters will ask for are things you need an open mind to address.
Excellent. It reminds me of a quote from the legendary Earl Nightingale. For those that don't know, Earl Nightingale was an American radio personality. He's also a speaker and a writer. And he did a lot of work around human character and personal development. And one of his quotes is to look at what the majority are doing and then do the opposite. And it very, very similar to what you're saying there. So you don't worry about the competition, but literally you would look at what they're doing and do the opposite. And for a lot of people, they find that difficult to comprehend. But the facts are this, that 80% of recruitment businesses that are in business today won't be around 5 years from now.
Yeah.
And 20% of the market will have 80% of the business. And if you look at what the majority are doing, they're actually doing it wrong. And it brings us nicely back to what you said at the very beginning about how you get business. And one of the ways that you get business is through your website. And what we know is as a business, and we work with recruiters and search firms from all over the world, the majority of recruitment and search firm owners don't get any leads from their website. But if you ask them where they got the idea for the website, they said, well, we looked at other recruiters' websites and we kind of did something very similar. Well, that's an example of don't do that, because most recruiters don't get leads from the website. And what we know is we've got clients who will generate anything between, sort of 20 and 80 leads a month just from the website. But they do things completely different. I think that's a great example there to don't worry about the competition and and lead rather than follow.
Yeah.
Excellent example. Thanks for that, Paul. Really appreciate that. That's a real gem there.
Good. Thanks.
And you really have shared some excellent stuff with us. So you talked about the best bit of advice. You talked about your colleague who eventually set up Voyager. Has he been the biggest influencer on your business life?
I think so, yeah. I mean, certainly when I joined Voyager, I was a relatively young lad. Certainly had less grey hair than I've got now, and so I was pretty naive. I mean, I'd worked in a high pressure sales environment, running the recruitment company that I work for, and to sort of come out of that and be given an opportunity to, be creative and find solutions. That was definitely an outlook on life and business that I kind of grasped hold of. People often refer to me as the emotional one here, but I think sometimes at Voyager it's good to have a bit of emotion. I like to call it passion, but certainly Jeff was the guy who I think kept Voyager on track, kept us focused on delivering what our clients wanted, which might not be what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, excellent. And what was his name? Jeff
Warburton. Yeah.
Warburton. Warburton was the biggest influence on you.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Excellent. Fantastic. Paul, thank you so much. Look, you've shared some real gems from us, and you offer this webinar. Can you sort of tell us some of the things that people, when they attend this webinar, some of the benefits they'll get from this webinar, please, Paul?
No, yeah, happy to do that. So, yeah, we offer a sourcing webinar, which is free to anybody that can be bothered to listen for half an hour. I guarantee you'll get some golden nuggets out of it that you'll never forget. It kind of shows a couple of sneaky things, so some sort of VIP area websites that you'd normally have to pay for. So the ability to search on things that would normally be outside of your grasp. It shows you how to use social media activity to nurture a better first introduction to somebody. So, if you're going to make a cold call to a client or a candidate, how best to increase your chances on that. It's about 20 minutes long. If you're in recruitment, you definitely learn something from it. We've had loads of people join, and it appeals to the guy that's going out into recruitment for the first time probably as much as the guy who thinks he knows it all. So there's some great stuff. I won't share too much, but it's well worth joining.
Excellent. And where can they go to get access to this webinar, please, Paul?
Yeah, we display it, as you can imagine, all over our website. So the best thing to do is simply go to voyagersoftware.com, click on the self-help portal, and in there you'll be able to get access to all the clinics, the videos and the webinars that we offer. And the one at the top of the list will be the focus on Renegade Recruiter, where they'll find the link to register for the webinar in a couple of weeks' time.
Fantastic. So it's voyagersoftware.com.
Yeah. Software.com. Yeah, and if you literally just go to your blog for Renegade Recruiter, the links will be on there. But we also have a self-help portal which you can click. It's just the big button on the right. Can't miss it.
Fantastic. Paul, that's been great. And I know you talked a lot about LinkedIn and about social media. I know that you're on LinkedIn. Would it be okay to our listeners to connect with you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Feel free to just either search for Voyager or Paul Thompson. I'm sure I'll come up somewhere in the list.
Right. And just for the sake of clarity, can you spell your surname, please, Paul?
Yeah, it's Thompson. Thompson.
Fantastic. Paul, that's been absolutely fantastic. You've really shared some real gems there. And just the fact about the size of your group and some of the other software companies that you own, that was news to me. I must confess, I didn't know that.
Yeah, good.
That's fantastic. When you then share some of the benefits of some of your software, and you talked about the intelligent data and some of the things that the software can do now. For example, you can identify candidates and what their activity is on social media sites. That's so powerful. The gem you shared with us in terms of the best piece of advice you got was don't listen to you, don't do what your competitors are doing. Absolutely fantastic. And then to add to it all, you then give us a free webinar, which with a free webinar with some sneaky tricks of how recruiters and search firms can find candidates, how social media can turn strangers into candidates. And you said this webinar is ideal for both the novice and the expert. And you're giving that webinar away absolutely free. That's really generous of you, Paul. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you for joining us on this interview as well.
No problem, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been absolutely great. This is Terry Edwards, Renegade Recruiter. Until next time, take care, take action, and be relentless.